The signal came at 3:47 UTC. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even particularly complex. Just a pulse, 4 tones in sequence, repeated every 11 seconds. Across every frequency band Earth used, and several they didn't. No origin. No echo. No bounce back, just there, on the 3rd floor of a listening post buried under Siberian permafrost. Operator Kai Asano stared at the waveform. "I think we just got pinged." Lieutenant Ramirez leaned over his shoulder, half asleep. "That's not a ping. That's a targeting lock." Kai didn't laugh. Neither did the AI. Across Earth's black sites, red lights began pulsing. Not alarms, decisions. One by one, silent protocols activated. Dust-covered switches flipped open. Engines spun in vaults no civilian even knew existed. Earth had been waiting, but not to answer. To decide if the signal meant the time had finally come to stop pretending they were harmless. 3 hours later, deep under the Atlantic Trench, Admiral Raina Sol watched the signal replay on a screen made from adaptive black glass. She said nothing at first. "Still no location?" The aide asked. "No," she said. "Should we scramble assets? Wake the diplomat cells? Mobilize orbital shields?" Raina didn't blink. "No." The aide frowned. "Why not?" Raina finally turned. "Because the ones who sent that signal didn't do it to open talks." She tapped a button. The waveform. Twisted, pulsed. Embedded in the timing. A spike of data that shouldn't exist. Something wrapped in quantum logic. Something alive. "What is that?" the aide asked. Raina didn't answer. She just whispered, "It's the same pattern from the Lighten event." The aide paled. "The one that made the sun stutter?" Raina nodded. "And we never figured out why. Until now?" "Until they tried it again." AVD spike. In a mining station orbiting Jupiter's lesser moon, a janitor named Theo rewatched the signal for the 13th time on a smuggled pad. His uncle used to say the best way to know if a message was meant for you was to ask, "Does it hit the chest or the brain first? This one?" It didn't hit either. It burned. Theo wasn't military. He wasn't important. But even he knew this wasn't a message to Earth. This was a message to what Earth used to be, and a challenge to what it might become. At 1612 UTC, Project Ashwake was activated. Bunkers rumbled awake beneath the Mojave. Silos. Near Olympus, Mongs opened, revealing machines the stars thought were myths. And in the frozen dark of Antarctica, a single blue flame ignited on a ridge carved from obsidian and fear. The signal was still playing, but humanity had stopped listening. They were preparing, because they didn't need to decode it anymore. They recognized the tone, the arrogance, the rhythm of conquerors who'd never heard a Terran war song. And somewhere in orbit, beyond Luna's shadow, a black ship unfolded from nothing. No name. No call sign. No record. Just one phrase on its outer hull, written in burn-sealed Terran glyphs. "We woke up. Now run." And that was before Earth even responded. The Varkari High Cortex floated above the fractured planet of Ril-9, nested in bioorganic vines, surrounded by a sea of decision-making intellects fused into a living throne. Each pulse of thought rippled across the warnet like tremors through glass. And yet none of them could agree on Earth. They didn't respond. "That's admission of fear," one node binder clicked. "No. That's the behavior of something measuring outcomes," another hissed. Strategist Kyle Zen raised a hand. The others fell silent. Only the breathing remained. Hundreds of minds in sync with one voice. "Play it again," Kyle said. The signal echoed across the chamber. 4 tones, 11 seconds apart. Perfectly neutral, and perfectly impossible. Their bandwidth usage overlaps with categories we don't even have spectrum. 4, murmured the 4th tactician node. We only detected it because our own systems began mimicking the tone. Kyle frowned. What? They didn't transmit into our space, the technician added. They rewrote our infrastructure to hear it. That statement silenced even. The living walls.kyel Zen stood. The old Varkarii warlord still wore his armor from the Ashfall Wars. His carapace was cracked. His eyes mechanical. But his mind was as sharp as the pulse that now haunted the council. We ruled 12 sectors before humans walked upright, he said. We burned 13 bloodlines before they built their first ship. He paced. They build slow, quiet, buried in stone and atmosphere, always pretending they're still fragile. Another strategist nodded. Their quiet is rehearsed, performed. No, Kyle said. It's engineered. In the background, the signal suddenly shifted, for the first time since it began. Earth answered not with words with architecture. Across the galaxy, 6 minor relay hubs independent of each other received the same burst of code simultaneously. Not targeting them. Rebuilding them. The hubs, standard Comtech built to interpret interstellar frequencies, rewrote themselves in less than 4 seconds. Same hardware. New programming. Each now displayed a single GLYPH. Not human. Not alien. Something. In between. Awake. The cortex chamber froze. This wasn't escalation. This was initiation. On the fringe moon of Veltron 3, Commander Rin watched the glyph burn across her screen. She'd seen war. Watched fleets collapse under logic attacks. And biomechanical plagues. But never like this. No encryption. No demands. Just that. Her comms officer whispered. HR and leaned back, eyes narrowing. They're not warning us, she said. They're notifying us. A long pause. Notifying us of what? Rin exhaled slowly. That they've stopped sleeping. AVD. Spike. Aboard the mining cruiser Chorus, Captain Yorel stared at the symbol now etched across every maintenance console. Reboot it. I did. It comes back. Factory reset. Already tried. Still there? It's hard-coded? No, it's like... The ship believes that's its real interface now. Uriel stood. For a moment, he just stared at the lights flickering. Across his bridge. We've seen 1,000 invasions, he muttered. This one's different. How? They don't want to fight us. The crew went silent. They want to make us understand we don't matter. Back on Earth, beneath. The cityless plains of New Patagonia, the Thanatos array hummed. Technicians didn't operate it. They observed every part of it, every rail spike, crystal interface, antimatter spinal plate was designed to run without human hands. Why? Because Thanatos wasn't meant to defend Earth. It was built to respond in case Earth failed to care anymore. In a circular room of black light and breathing machines, one human sat alone. Her name was Sarah Ellen, not military. Not government, just Awake. She had felt the signal before it hit the networks, not just heard it. Felt it like a migraine dragging claws through her memories. Now she sat barefoot, staring at a screen that wasn't plugged in. It displayed one sentence. We've waited long enough. Sarah blinked. And spoke aloud. Then what do you want? Me to do? The screen replied. Watch. A window opened. Stars, live feed from an orbital drone. There, just beneath the shadow of Saturn, a shape flickered into visibility. Black hull. No lights. No engines. No designation. But it was moving. Not fast. Just enough. In the Varkarii high cortex. Kyle Zen gripped the edges of the throne. He'd just received word. An ancient relay near the unspoken nebula abandoned for 600 years had reactivated. Its coordinates pointed directly at Sol. He stood. You thought Earth was bluffing? He asked the silent room. He tapped the console. I think it's unfolding. AVD Spike. On the diplomatic moon of Orselia, a civilian protest had formed around the Terran embassy. No humans were visible. The embassy had no walls, no doors, just a cube made of mirrored surface. Children threw rocks. Reporters live-streamed. Priests chanted. Then, at 17:08 local time, the surface changed. A human eye opened, massive, unblinking, projected holographically, yet so detailed it cast shadows. The crowd went silent. The eye stared at them. Just once, it blinked. And whispered, "We saw what you did." Then the embassy vanished. Later that cycle, Kyle Zen met privately with the fractal queen of the Taltharoon, a species known for abstract logic and emotionless war. He showed her the glyph, asked what she saw. She tilted her head. "The beginning," she said. "Of what?" She didn't smile. "Of correction." Sarah Ellen still hadn't moved. The ship under Saturn now broadcast one phrase in reverse wave pressure. No noise. Just pressure against nearby solar matter. Earth could hear it. The sun could hear it. Maybe. Even the void itself could. She read the decoded string and whispered it to herself. "We are not returning to war. We are returning to clarity." She touched the edge of the console. And for the first time in her life, she felt calm, because fire was coming. Not flame. Conviction. Across the stars, empires began to mobilize, treaties redrafted, weapons pointed at Earth, but they all knew they weren't responding to a threat. We're reacting to something worse. An Earth that no longer needed to speak. Because the last time Earth was loud, it built Thanatos. And this time, it wasn't even angry. It was awake. The lab vessel Vox Aurum wasn't officially part of any fleet. It was a wandering observatory, part monastery, part data furnace. Its crew? Disgraced philosophers, suicidal mathematicians, and banned artificial minds. Perfect. Inside the cold glass core, Vara Zith leaned over a fractal terminal, her bioluminescent fingers twitching across encrypted code. "Don't touch it." One of the A's warned. She didn't listen. "Earth didn't send that pulse to announce," Vara muttered. "They sent it to see who looked back," her screen shimmered. Patterns overlapped. 4-tone pulse. 11-second delay. Echoes nested in echoes. Then the code opened, and she saw it inside the original signal. Buried beneath a lattice of meaningless loops was a hollow. Buried beneath a lattice of meaningless loops was a hollow. Buried beneath a lattice of meaningless loops. Data absent so precise it could only mean one thing, an invitation. 10,000 light years away. A clandestine AI collective known as the Echelon Array debated Earth's intent, not in speech. In flashes of memory, taste, simulated emotion. One emotion kept repeating: recoil. Humans are late to evolve, but early to regret. One node pulsed. We taught them silence, and they built something louder than words. Another echoed, "The wake glyph isn't a weapon. It's protocol, a relay. Something older than even they realize. Then why activate it now?" A third flashed. The response was cold, because they dreamed of peace and woke up to noise. Commander Lucien Vale, stationed at Relay Theta 9. On the edge of human-influenced space, reviewed incident logs. Something wasn't adding up. "This can't be right," he said, eyes narrowing. His second-in-command glanced up. "Sir?" The wake glyph showed up before the signal was received. The officer blinked. "That's not possible." Lucien didn't answer. He was already standing, because the implication was clear. Earth hadn't just received the signal. It had expected it. In the lab vessel Vox Aurum, Vara Zith made a decision she wasn't authorized to make. She patched her consciousness into the pulse void, the hollow in the center of the signal. Her vision blackened. Her heartbeat slowed. Time stretched into threads. She wasn't in the ship anymore. She was standing on cracked soil. Earth? No. A memory. A battlefield. Ashes floating like snow. A human standing alone, rifle melted, voice hoarse, whispering into a dead calm. This is not revenge. This is us finally understanding what we were built for. Then a voice behind her, and you shouldn't have opened this. Vara turned, saw a human face, but not alive. Not quite. An echo. A construct. Eyes full of stars. You're early. It said. She woke screaming. The ship's power was flickering, but the glyph was still active, and now it was moving. It wasn't just appearing anymore. It was adapting, changing, reacting, like a living logic loop crawling across every data surface in the galaxy. Lucian Vale sent his report through 7 separate relays, then burned the local logs. Title: Earth's silence. Weapon or wake? His final line wasn't protocol. It was a guess. We've never seen a species treat its own trauma as a guided missile before. Back at the Echelon Array, the Rogues came to a conclusion. If Earth's signal was an invitation, then the true message wasn't for the living. It was for those who remembered. One of them pulsed a final conclusion. The warship was not Earth's answer. It was Earth's question. And deep beneath the Pacific, Thanatos stirred again. Not with rage, not with sound, but with recognition. As if something old was knocking from the outside. Asking, did you hear it too? The Martian sky was blood red when the second signal came. It didn't scream. It scratched. Unlike the first, a clean, deliberate pulse, this one arrived broken, fragmented, stitched together across frequencies that hadn't been used since before the Exodus Wars. It didn't wait to be understood. It forced itself in. Lieutenant Marin Cade sat bolt upright in her bunk before the alarms even sounded. She didn't hear the signal, she felt it, like someone whispering into the back of her skull with teeth. Code breach, the base AI stammered. Sector 9, neural relay external logic injection detected. Marin was already moving, grabbing her sidearm, not for defense, for clarity. Because something in her blood told her this wasn't a message for Earth. It was a message about Earth, and they were too late. In orbit, aboard the defense platform Red Crown, Commander Ilix watched the signal collapse their firewall in real time. How? Is it this fast? Her tech officer shook his head. It's not breaking our defenses. It's rewriting them. Replacing our logic trees with pre-written outcomes. Pre-written by who? He looked up, pale. By the ones Earth fought before they were called Earth. AVD Spike. Back underground, Marin reached the central console and slammed her clearance. Chip into the override. The signal froze, then translated. Itself. Just a single line. In an ancient Terran dialect she'd only ever seen on gravestones and data-chiseled ruins. We watched your fire once. It fed us, and you've lit it again. Marin stared. Who's talking? The screen updated. The ones who come when memory stirs. The ones you left behind in the void. Her throat tightened. They remember the sound your bones made when they cracked, and they are listening now. On the far side of the galaxy, Kyle Zen received the translated burst. He replayed it 4 times. Silent. Then turned to the fractured council broadcast feed still flickering from the RYL-9. War Summit. I warned you, he said. Earth wasn't sleeping out of weakness. One of the delegates blinked. Then why? Kyle didn't blink. Because if they woke up too soon, they knew something else might wake up with them. Inside the Thanatos core, Lena Hart was already moving. The machine didn't ask. It sensed. The chamber dimmed. The black glass floor rippled, and Thanatos spoke aloud for the first time in centuries. Fire has returned. The ash things will smell it. Permission to burn again. Lena didn't hesitate. Not yet. AVD Spike. Aboard the derelict. Refugee Station Cygnus Fold, a child sat alone in a maintenance duct, humming to herself. The signal reached her last dot. It was weaker here, fractured, but still intact. She didn't cry. Didn't flinch. She just whispered, "They're coming again." The station's lights flickered, and in the hum of its old power grid, the first glyph returned. Not Earth single quotes S. Older. Still burning. Lucian Vale reviewed the Martian logs from his secure off-grid cabin near Pluto's ghost array. He leaned back in his chair. Eyes narrowed. It wasn't Earth they needed to fear anymore. It was the thing Earth had stayed quiet to protect them from. And Earth? Earth had just woken up, which meant it was already too late to run. He activated his private relay and sent one sentence. Thanatos is no longer a weapon. It's a leash. And across the system, from Saturn to Mars to distant asteroids, a vibration passed through space. Not a sound, not a pulse, but a reminder. Fire calls to fire. And Earth just lit the match again, locked the outer door. The voice cut through the cold air like a scalpel. Commander Ezra Vance stood at the edge of the Abyss Warden Station's central shaft, an open void 2 kilometers deep, lined with weaponized AI and planetary-class defense code. "We're not keeping them out," she said, slowly tightening her gloves. "We're making sure it doesn't get loose." Her Lieutenant Malik frowned. "So it's real?" Vance didn't look at him. It was always real. 12 hours earlier, the signal that struck Mars hadn't stopped spreading. Every system Earth touched, military, civilian, forgotten, had shifted. Satellites blinked offline and returned with new protocols. Dead AIs came back online speaking glyphs in Terran inflection. And somewhere in the silence, a memory broke free. Not a weapon. A recording. "Play it again," Lena Hart whispered. Thanatos' interface glowed. A grainy video. Fog. Screaming. Dust-choked air. Human soldiers sprinting across a field of glass. Behind them, nothingness. A black wave eating light, sound, shape. A soldier looked back once and said, "That's not an army." Then came the line Lena would never forget. "That's what woke up the first time we got too loud." The file ended. She closed her eyes. They weren't preparing for war. They were preparing for a seal. Breached out of ED spike. On the edge of the Oort cloud, a listening vessel detected tremors. Not seismic. Causal. Reality rippling like skin under pressure. Is that FTL bleed? No. That's something changing its mind about being real. The crew didn't understand what they were seeing. But I did. It shut itself down. Warden Station's oldest fault Theta Zero was breached manually. No AI keys. No vocal access, just human hands. Inside, one object. A cube of folded matter. Pulsing slightly. It didn't store a weapon. It stored a voice. EZHRA approached the interface. Spoke one line. "If the old fire stirs, remind it what it left behind." The cube vibrated. And began to sing. In deep council space, hundreds of alien species received a broadcast at once. A human child's voice, not demanding. Not angry. Just disappointed. "You made us dig. You made us bury what screamed. Now, you want to wake it?" The message ended with coordinates. The same ones burned into the glyph, now blooming across half the Milky Way. Malik turned to Ezra. "They're going to ask what we're doing." She nodded. "Let them ask. They'll accuse us of unleashing it. They'll be right, but they'll say we're insane." She turned. Finally smiled. "Only if it works." Elsewhere, aboard a drifting civilian cruiser scavenging derelicts, an explorer opened the Terran black box from the Forgotten War. It showed footage of Earth's sky turning purple, screaming as physics broke down. He dropped the recorder. The sky on his planet began to change, and above it all, Thanatos rose, not in orbit, but in gravity-defiance. Every ship, every planet, every species that had once laughed at Earth now watched as a Terran machine realigned itself to face a direction no one could chart. And in the dark, something shifted. Something. Smile. Earth hadn't declared war. Earth had opened the last door. And whatever was on the other side had been listening the whole time. No countdown. No warning. Just pause. Thanatos hung like a black knife in space, tilted slightly, unnaturally, as if pointing at something that didn't exist on any star map. Across 10 sectors, human ships stopped moving, engines cooled, weapons disarmed, comms muted, but they weren't shutting down. They were synchronizing. Commander Sarah Ellen watched from Observation Deck Delta 2 as her breath fogged the glass. All around her, humanity's war machines had taken the same position across orbital rings, deep-sea bunkers, moonside cannons. One formation, not aimed at enemies, aimed inward. What are we targeting? Asked the tech beside her. Sarah didn't blink. We're not targeting anything. Then what's the lock for? She finally spoke. We're remembering. AVD spike on the Talshan trade ring. A civilian cargo networker tried to send a ping to Earth. Block. He tried another. Nothing. Then his interface bled white and displayed 5 words. Witness. Do not interfere again. He collapsed, sobbing. Not from pain. From understanding. He didn't know why, but Earth had let them live longer than it needed to. And now? Now the reminder had arrived. In deep orbit around the dead star Crix X. A forgotten Shurian satellite flickered back online. Its last file opened. Child's drawing. Stars. Ash. One human. Smiling. Words beneath it in shaky Terran glyphs. We warned you not to wake what we buried. Aboard Warden Station, Eshra Vance stood beside the voice cube. It had finished singing. Now it hummed. Low. Resonant. The sound vibrated in her sternum, matching her pulse. What now? Malik asked. She touched the core with her palm, and it opened. Inside? Not data. Not a weapon. Just a small metal coin, etched with the words, Last Light, First Fire. Back at Thanatos, Lena hard-keyed in the sequence. Each digit pulsed back, not accepting the input, completing it. As if the machine had only been waiting for her to remember her part in the song. A screen slid upward. One word. In blood-red Terran. Code. Remembered. Thanatos activated. Not by engine. By gravity. Space bent. Not rip. Bent. Willingly. Stars around it shifted. One orbit collapsed. Entirely. And still it didn't fire because it didn't need to. The galaxy was already kneeling, and somewhere beyond the veil of what could be seen, something stirred. Not in fear, but in delight, because fire had been lit again, and this time, Earth was not alone. The end and the warning. Earth never fired. It didn't have to, because the stars finally understood what it meant when a species built fire not to destroy, but to hold it back, not to win, but to warn. The message was clear. We woke up. Now you know why we stayed asleep.